Perspective could be the most powerful internal characteristic. It truly is the difference between a good or bad performance, life and death, or success and failure in certain circumstances. When it comes to our daily lives, the good and bad circumstances are bound to happen, so our actions are extremely important in how we get through, maintain, or grow our situation. While the changes downward can happen in the blink of an eye, the changes upward often take more time. In these times, our perspective is one of the most sustaining aspects of our lives. When we are at our lowest, it's easy to get in a bad headspace. Things might tend to spiral and we end up becoming complacent or overwhelmed, making bad choices and being stuck in a hole that we have to climb out of. Part of the experience revolves around how we allow our realities to dictate our emotions, causing us to lose faith in our visions and desires until they become overgrown with doubt and other negativities. When that inner light is extinguished or covered, we often trend downward as our own internal compass is missing. Yet that only happens when we lose or don't have a good perspective to fulfill us. It's not to say that perspective alone keeps us from getting into trouble or sadness, jealousy, doubt, any of that stuff, but rather it's what gets us through it and out the other side. We don't get to control the things that pop up in our head or the emotions we initially have, as these things oftentimes behave like a reflex because of our previous experience, mental state, ideas of self, or whatever. So it's important that we are able to try and be conscious of these occurrences so we can understand the nature of ourselves. And it's often in times of pain or struggle when we are met with the challenges that put our face in the mirror, giving us an opportunity to find the silver lining or not. When we are in an upward time, we should have a good perspective. We aim to both enjoy the fruits of our labor and continue to become better. It's less likely that someone will be unhappy as they better themselves financially, physically, and/or in other ways, but it can occur if someone has anxiety or guilt in doing well. More commonly, our viewpoint can change from being happy about the trend upwards towards our goal to being negative from the experiences, reactions, or even monotony of our newfound success. People reach peaks most never will, just to fall to depths that most others won't. And it's especially transparent with the proliferation of social media in nearly all age groups. It seems to be a natural progression for those who have always had or develop a bad perspective, as our ideas of self aren't attainable with the realities around us, causing internal turmoil or social rejection. Various social issues today can be summarized by this for better or worse. I've seen the term crash out used to describe self-destructive behavior that one does because they don't care or they want clout, essentially creating a situation where at least they have control of their crashing out, as there's likely a feeling of no control in other parts of their lives. On social media, there seems to be a revolving door of this behavior, where creators spend years to develop a brand, image, and foothold for themselves, just to end up disliking their fans, getting bored of the job, or becoming addicted to possibilities of wealth and power. And while some creators or celebrities have glaring character issues, the perspective change isn't that much different than what regular people experience in their work lives too. Instead of fans that we dislike, it's coworkers that we're forced to spend the day with. And even in cool jobs, it's not uncommon to hear someone say that it gets boring or that they aren't fulfilled. And most people have daydreamed of hitting the lottery or figuring a way to earn money and power or influence. Even if it's just to be management or leadership in your company, the underlying factor is still the same as the content creator wanting to get bigger. In these situations, their perspective is probably poor, leaving them unbalanced mentally for the growth or success that they desire or that they're getting, ungrateful or unappreciative for the positives that they've earned or even inherited, unconsciously willing to crash out those positives as they're unfulfilling to their jaded perspective. So while others' failures are entertaining, they should really be informative, as who are we to act different when we come into the next tier of money or success or luxury? The good perspective that comes out of the bad times can often help give us the reality check to prevent us from going back. Sometimes our ideas of what we can and can't do prevent us from achieving our goals, probably so we don't have to deal with the unnecessary rejection. Yet when we do this, we keep doors closed and limit our opportunities for being involved or associated with things that will help us reach our goals and discover new ones. Sometimes these ideas of what we can't do are from childhood, and maybe they're reinforced in our teens or early adulthood. And when we're children, there's not much we can do, but as adults, it's our problem and it becomes our responsibility to figure it out. If we let our problems overtake who we are and don't seek help or solutions, this rubs off on those around us, possibly preventing new opportunities or harming the ones we have now. A good perspective allows us to get over these speed bumps of our own imposed limitations. Most people don't actually care about things unless it has to do with them, yet it's common to want to be liked or wonder what people think of you. However, with this mindset, we are simply putting the control in someone else's hands and expect our kind or eager or whatever personality to portray an image of good-naturedness or to be attractive. Yet, this in its own is somewhat manipulative, as everyone has a right to like or not like you. The ability to let go and both be empathetic yet apathetic about your surroundings is gained through a perspective that comes within. Something that is found when you stop hiding the aspects of yourself that you value most and stop fearing the rejection that comes with that and start allowing yourself to go down the path you've wanted. When we do that with the understanding of what we can control, we can allow ourselves to stop having expectations and just start doing. It's also common to be surrounded by others in a groupthink mentality. Most of us actively do that in some parts of our lives, whether it comes to our sports team, our favorite bands or musicians, favorite game developers or movie studios, political opinions, etc. Yet it's dangerous to fall into the group when it comes to going down your path. The ideas, attitudes, and behaviors of those we surround ourselves with or are surrounded by circumstantially can be like crabs in a bucket, where any vertical mobility in spirit, finance, health, whatever, can be seen as a challenge to others, or a mirror where their instinct is to compare themselves to you. And when we're stuck in that mentality, there isn't really a need for self-reflection, as we don't decide what we think, we're just repeating other people's principles through our own interpretations. Good perspective is one of the ways we break free. Those instances of crabs in a barrel where others aren't happy for our success or want something without consideration for you might be overlooked as something else, but time after time, there's likely going to be a thought of what's really going on here. The realization can be gutting, yet it allows for the development of our good perspective. Instead of looking at what we lost or how things are taking a step back, we can look at the lack of external negativity and our weight vest slowly being lifted. While it's important to feel accepted, the more we seek it externally, the more we are at the will of what's outside of our control. It takes strength and integrity to stay true to what we'd like, yet when we do, we'd find more happiness and fulfillment than if we do what we think we're supposed to do. Our choices are the only things we really have control of externally, but the outcomes are never certain. Our perspective is our innermost choice and the compass behind our physical actions. Why do we not try to improve this? With all the resources and awareness behind mental health, why is it more common to medicate or talk to a therapist about your personal problems? Everybody goes through crises. We have them in our childhood and as adults. And I think times like these show us how little we have control over some things that end up meaning the most, like family. For example, they will die, or maybe we will first, and it's natural to be sad. But we prepare by understanding that and knowing that, and ultimately being okay with that. Our perspective allows us a choice to accept it, giving us the freedom in this confusion. A good perspective allows us not to let this limit us, and maybe we visit them often, making the most out of our time. because when they do die, we have empathy towards that, and understanding our day will also come, yet they're at peace, and our conflict comes from our lack of access to them, and our inability to spend time or make memories. This lack of control raises our actions or inactions to the surface. If we've done what we truly wanted, we can allow ourselves to have closure and have a good perspective through the death of a family member, understanding that the sadness is natural, but you made the most of the time that you had. If we haven't and maybe didn't visit or spend time with them, we tend to beat ourselves up or make excuses for our inactions, creating a crisis where we can challenge our current outlook or let our inability to do so allow ourselves from doing what we want and continuing our suffering. The moral of this story is it's how you're writing it. Everyone will have their own interpretation, and that's fine. We don't have the luxury or stress of having to deal with that or even care. If we do what we want, what's fulfilling to our core, then what does anything else matter? After all, 8 hours stuck in a dead-end job is quite different than 8 hours doing something you love. Our perspective is the baseline for what allows us to get out of the former and into the latter,